Thank you, Ashley. Good day, everyone. Thank you for joining us while we do some distance learning as is recommended by every school in the country right now, which we're ahead of the game, I guess, because we're already doing it. We're going to discuss Meridian and how we can leverage metadata and optimize some of that in Meridian to make your documents really metadata rich for searching purposes. Again, I'm Jennifer Sample. I'm the Technical Solutions Consultant at Hagerman, specializing in Meridian for higher ed, university campuses, and some city jurisdictions. Today, what we're going to talk about, and maybe what you will learn or learn some additional info if you already know some of it, is what metadata is and why it's important, how to ensure metadata quality and consistency by leveraging existing sources, and then some of the benefits of leveraging this data across the organization. So what is metadata? Metadata, the definition is it's defined as the data providing information about one or more aspects of the data or document. It is used to summarize basic information, which can make tracking and working with specific data a little easier. That's a long definition. Merriam-Webster says that it's data that provides information about other data, which makes sense because in our world, in the Meridian world in document management, the data piece they speak of is the document itself. And then we try to capture, and we successfully capture, all the metadata that is useful to your organization on that document. And my PowerPoint. Please bear with us as we may have some technical difficulties with, I think, online services being a little overwhelmed. There might be a little delay. Some metadata in its basic form is descriptive terms. And we're going to talk about this O&M manual as an example, because I think all of us can relate to drawings, but operation and maintenance manuals really are the data-rich source for your entire organization. So we want to capture the who the manufacturer is, maybe who put it in the system, the when, so we have a context of time of when this O&M is maybe stale, maybe it's 20 years old, so it might be pretty stale, or if it's brand new. We want the where. Where is this O&M manual used? What location is this piece of equipment that goes with this O&M manual installed? That's pretty important. And then the what, obviously, it's an O&M manual for what? A piece of equipment. So that's the what. The AHU, the equipment, possibly what else is in there. There might be electrical, other things covered in the what. And then the why. The why is kind of important because you also want to know, was this a brand new install, or is this an O&M from a repair and replace, or remove and replace, or a repair? Kind of contextually important. So it's important. Why is it important to have metadata? Well, there's already metadata on files as you have them in your system, but it's really important for categorizing them. So you can group them by type or location, or by when. You can categorize. Organizing, similar concept. You can organize them in a chronological manner, which makes a lot of sense for O&M manuals in particular, also for drawings, so you can see how the changes progressed over time. And also, the most important piece in an organization that covers facilities groups, so you have operations and maintenance planning, project management, sometimes outside consultants, is locating these documents so that you can find them later and easily find them instead of having to dig through a file room or the way that we normally see it on a Windows folder structure. So again, let's talk about this O&M manual. And we'll talk about a non-Meridian situation. You get the O&M manual and you save it in a folder structure similar to this. It's probably a little bit different. It's always a little bit different. Even if you have a standard, human error tends to do what they want to do. But you see, I have a project location, a project number with a basic description. It's in a folder called Closeout, and it's in a folder further called O&Ms, because I might get a few different ones that aren't combined in one package. And then you have your simple file name. Well, this is all great, and it's standard Windows format. So if everyone knows where to find things, it makes complete sense. Except there's one major piece missing from here, and that's the extra metadata that doesn't get captured in a Windows folder structure. There is some, such as there's a date, created date. You could search on that and filter by that when you find a bunch. Size, nobody really cares about the size. Nobody searches on that. The file type, you know it's an O&M that came in as a PDF, so sure, you could filter by PDF. Windows searching will get you more results and not pare it down as much as if you had rich metadata. That's where this becomes very important. This is the main problem with Windows folder structures, is that as you can see by this file name, the file name really doesn't say much. It says gold O&M 1-21. That's pretty cryptic. What does that even mean? But that's what you're going to pull up. So somebody's going to pull up in their query maybe a few of these that have just a different number, but they're not going to know where they're located, what project they are in, what date. They'll see the date here, but they won't know if that was a date that it got opened and closed and somebody saved it, or if that was the original. So there's a lot of missing information here that Meridian solves. Such as, wouldn't it be great if on that document you could have all this additional metadata, like location data? When you tag the document, you bring it into Meridian and you enter information, wouldn't it be great if you could say what building this goes to and what floor it's on? Specifically, not an AHU, those are usually on the roof, but if it's a water heater or something else that is location specific, it'd be great to know where in the building and what building and which campus this all applies to. It would also be great to know what equipment data this AHU is tied to. So maybe this AHU was part of a building and there's 4 different AHUs. They each have their own individual equipment number, which makes sense, but why save this 4 times? It might be that this is used in multiple buildings across the organization as well. Maybe they decided that this was their standard. They're going to reinstall this in 4 buildings. This equipment number can also be tied to the building. Wouldn't that be great to know? And manufacturer. A lot of times they want to, I've run into maintenance folks who just search by the manufacturer because they want to see what it looks like. The other flip side is the project data. This is a contextual reference that a lot of operation maintenance folks like to use, is when was it installed? It was in this project. You can easily see that there's a project number, so you could go to your other system and find that. It pulls in the location based on the project. You can search for it by, different things, but it brings in a contextual reference for when that equipment was installed and when that O&M was received. In your Windows file structure, this would be stuff that you have to manually enter into either the file name or into the folder structure in order to find it by any of those items. But how do you keep that information consistent? Human error seems to be the most common problem with document management in a Windows folder structure. Somebody mistypes something or they don't follow the standard naming conventions. That's never happened to any of you, I'm sure. Or it gets deleted, which is another issue. But finding these documents in a Windows folder structure becomes challenging if you don't know the folder structure itself or what to look for. So there's some training issues. There's human interaction that happens that may mess things up. So by leveraging other systems of record for the data, like the building name, the building number, the asset number, the location data stays the same, the project, if that is already being entered in a system of record, why not utilize that information so that you don't have to manually type it in Meridian? You can, but that causes another set of problems. So we can leverage data from your locations management systems. This is where you pull in your list of sites or campuses, your buildings and floors. And some people go to the room level, which we can do. We don't recommend because room numbers change. So we can leverage information from things like Archibus, Plan On, Asset Work systems. and get that data correct. Your maintenance management systems, such as Maximo, Famous, or even AssetWorks again, for your equipment numbers, equipment details, um, any information that is in there. And also, we can leverage the information for any work orders, because sometimes a repair project isn't part of an actual project in your project management system. It's simply a work order. And you want to be able to say that this piece of equipment is connected to this work order. Well, it's already in the maintenance management system, so we can simply leverage that data in Meridian so that you can also capture it for the document itself. Project management systems such as Unifier, Famous, Bluebeam Review, we can leverage that project information from those sources so that your project numbers, your project descriptions, and project locations are all consistent between the two systems as well. These systems are already being maintained and have a standardized input method for entering that data in them. So why recreate it within Meridian? Why not leverage it and not have to maintain it in two places, reducing human error? It also allows that for use of other users, new consumers of the documents. So by leveraging the data on equipment level for the operation and maintenance folks, they might be more likely to be a new user of the Meridian system in order to find their documents, and then you get more buy-in from the organization as a whole to start using it on a bigger scale. So how do we make this happen? How do we leverage this information? Well, Meridian can do it. Meridian can do it on its own, but we have a way to make it work a little more streamlined, and we use IntelliWizards. This is a module that Hagerman adds into Meridian to make this a little bit easier for the users to leverage that data without having to go to 4 different sources and manually input. So IntelliWizards support almost any database that can be defined using ODBC or OLEDB. We typically use a universal data link or a UDL file to configure the connection to the source system. So we use this UDL file to connect to Famous, or to connect to PlanOn, or connect to AssetWorks. And we write it in such a way that it collects the data that we need into a SQL table that Meridian can use and leverage. Most of our customers use SQL Server for this source data, and that way it's all centrally located, but we can use other database systems for this source. Now, the tables themselves are usually created by a data push from the source. So it pushes from Famous into the table once a day, usually, with a product we have called IntelliSync, which updates those tables with any changes that happen, which is also a great way to keep your data consistent, because sometimes somebody had a typo in their project management system here, and they typed, maybe they forgot a 0. Well, they go through and they change that in the project management system. Well, all your documents will then, after it gets pushed to the table and updated on the table, IntelliSync will run and it will fix all those documents that already have that tagged to say the right thing. Or if the project manager changes, it updates the data. Really, really cool stuff. This ensures that the data is always available to Meridian by putting it on a SQL table so that there isn't an interruption if that source system goes down. The only delay would be as if it's down when it does that sync or does the push. This is also really handy when you want to move to another system. Project management systems, for example, you started with Famous, you realize that that's pretty decent, but you really want to move to a more robust project management system, say like Unifier or PlanOn or something like that. And we can easily capture that table so that you have the legacy data that is always available to Meridian in case somebody comes across a document in the past that needs to be entered into Meridian. You can still pick that project. This is great for archive solutions, current projects. This is also available for all of the leveraging. We keep that table as a record so that if you move to another system, we can easily keep it in the system, and that way your documents still have those things tagged to them. So let's take a look at some examples of what this information looks like in Meridian after we've leveraged it from another system. University A, project information, we see how they have certain pieces of information that they deemed useful to have in Meridian and tag on the documents. University B has a little bit of a different look. This shows how customizable it is and how configurable it is for your university, for your business process. We can capture the data you want to capture, and we will guide you into maybe adding a couple pieces that you may not think people are going to search on, but they might. So as you can see, they're radically different, but they have consistent numbers, dates. This is all data pulled from their project management system, which in this case happens to be famous on University B. University A, they have a different system in place for this, and they have a few systems that feed into their own table, which they call a rec ID table, and then it all gets compiled and they use that sheet as their source for Meridian. But they decided what they wanted to have in those lists. So as you can see also, the project information that they capture not only has the number, the description, number, description, it also includes a building. So they're leveraging building information based on the project when you pick a project. But say you want to add another building, what does that location data look like? University A. You can pick, when you pick your building, this is their standard list. The building number is what is consistent throughout. It never changes. The building name, however, this description, sometimes changes based on, oh, maybe somebody donated a bunch of money, or they decided that this building, this is no longer the music practice building because they're not there anymore. It is now a science lab. So they can change in their asset or their location system what this says, and this number is the consistent number. Then we can further filter by this building has these floors. If you were to pick botany greenhouse, there may only be a first floor and a roof. So it filters based on leveraging the data on what's true for that building. University B's list is a little bit different. Similar concept, they have a building number, they have a building name, but they also have an abbreviation that they use in their project descriptions instead of writing the entire thing or going by number. They also capture the zone or the area of campus that this building is located in. They use this, I believe, for GIS purposes as well, but they have different areas of campus that they reference. This was important to them to capture all of this metadata so that you could easily filter by all documents in this main campus category or Mountain Research Station or even off campus. Again, their floors are similar and they filter by the actual building. So this crystal chemistry building has this many floors. If you were to pick on distribution center, I believe it has one and probably a roof, maybe a second. I can't remember if they have some penthouses or whatever in their university. To further filter a little bit, you can then, with your assets, as long as your asset system captures what building they are in, your when they enter this data, here's their equipment number, their description there. They also tag a building. So based on whatever building I picked, I would see the list for all of the equipment within that building. And here's University B's example. Again, they don't have the building showing here, but it is part of their data. We just don't have it as a filter on the asset because you're already filtering by building. If you were to enter just a piece of data, a document that isn't building specific, you could pick from all the asset lists for every building and use the filter buttons to do that too. But in this example, we're saying that we entered a document specifically for this chemistry building, so therefore that's all I see. It pulls in all the data that is captured in that maintenance management system. Pretty handy to have when you want your operations and maintenance folks to be able to easily find maybe all of the category of documents that they need, like HVAC, fire protection, plumbing, things like that. Again, all of this, and I'm going to go backwards a little bit. All of this information is part of data entered on the Wizards. And so when we pick a project, it brings all that data from that table. It brings in the building information. There's another sheet that shows the equipment and asset information that you can add and modify in the wizard itself. Why is this a good thing to have throughout the organization? I think I've been saying it off and on throughout the presentation. It's so you can find things. That is the basic root of this benefit, is that you can find things, but you have consistent terminology. That's key. Everybody is speaking the same language between project managers and the CAD office and the operation maintenance folks. They're all using consistent terminology in their files. When they're searching for things, they can easily use AHU, or they can use the systems, or they can use the buildings. It's all the same. Instead of one person calling a building one thing, they can easily say, yes, it's building 204, but it's also chemistry. Maintain the data. It's a lot easier to maintain data in one location rather than multiple. So by leveraging the information, it's already maintained in your other systems. You don't have to maintain that list also in Meridian. You don't have to have a separate table in Meridian that has all the buildings. And remember that when you update it in your space system, that you also have to update it in Meridian. It's an automatic, no-brainer thing to do. The key, again, easier searching. The purpose of a document management system is to easily find documents based on this metadata. So when you put a document in, you tag all the metadata that is important to everyone in the organization so that they can easily find it. Your different departments are familiar with their terminology. So your operations and maintenance folks really are searching for things based on maybe equipment info. They're standing in front of a piece of equipment with their tablet, and they want to find that most recent O&M for that piece of equipment. They can easily type that into the Meridian search and find documents based on that piece of equipment. And they can find them in chronological order, and they can find the latest and greatest info they need. The building info, so that you're a building manager. Some universities have dedicated one person to managing the building and coordinating all of that. You can easily search based on your building only. You can build a query that stays that way, so that if any new documents come in for that are tagged to that building, they show in your search. It's a lot easier when you can whittle the documents down. Project info. Your O&M people, your operations and maintenance folks, usually don't know what project something is happening in. But if the asset or the building is tagged to that, they can easily query any of the project info that's happening. So if they're looking for a submittal, they've been asked to review a submittal on a project, if they know, the asset number that may be already pre-assigned, sometimes that happens, they can query that and find it within the project without knowing what the project number is, what the project description is. Same with other project managers. They can easily find, hey, I want to look for something similar that another project manager may be doing. I can look for similar documents. I can look for things for this building, what was done in the past. Those are really all the benefits. The biggest one is searching. Because when you can find things, your efficiency goes up, your organization has more faith in the system, and you can easily find things when you need to find them. It's all about being selfish too, is that you can find things easy and efficiently. So now that I sped through that, do you have any questions that maybe can be further clarified by there's one comment from Phil Martin, and he knows the university I used as an example, and he said there's only one floor on distribution center. Thank you, Phil. I was pretty sure, but I wasn't completely sure. Hopefully there was some decent information in here and I didn't go too fast. You can always reference this later. It will be on our website. And you can always reach out to us and ask for more information or clarifications, or if you want a demo, if you want to see this in action, we can totally show you. That's pretty much all I have, unless there are questions.
Jennifer, I'll just jump in here while we're waiting, but I will let everyone know that if you think of a question later, you can simply reply to that confirmation or reminder email that you received from GoToWebinar, and we can route those to Jennifer or your sales rep to get those answered. Also, just a reminder about the survey, it's like 4 questions, and it will just pop up as we close down today. And I don't see anything in the question box, so
I do. Yep.
I think we'll just wrap up for today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. It was great to see everyone on. And thank you, Jennifer, for the presentation. And have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.